Hey guys, got a video for you. A viewer asked for this. I don't really have anything to set this on. The wife got me a bigger toolbox. There's no, let me see, wait a minute. I guess that won't work. Okay, I'll hold it. Wanted a video on how to find a good mechanic. That's a great video. I'm surprised I haven't done that already, so let's talk about that. But before we talk about it, we'll give you an update on old Ellie. And I'll flip it around and show you what they did, as I talked about it in the Money and News. So I dropped it off yesterday at my mechanic, and he thinks he solved the problem. It had been doing a weird thing where you take off in the morning or after it's set for a long time, it would kind of just stumble, and then it'd be fine. Although it did seem a little bit low on power, accelerating on throttle, not so much once you're on the cruise. So maybe a little bit on cruise. It seemed like it was down to 500 horsepower or so. I know, poor me, right? But this thing runs a little bit better than that. So anyways, we will find out. What he did was he ran it through all the tests on the computer, drove it, never really could get it to do it for himself. Of course, it was already warmed up then, and it doesn't really do it when it's warmed up. It only done it when it was warmed up on me one time. But all the injectors, he said, look good and everything. But what he thought it was the exhaust pressure sensor, and it was reading a little erratic. And he says almost every time these trucks do weird stuff without throwing codes, it's that sensor. So he replaced that. And what else? I had an air leak. He still can't find it. It's a minor deal, but it'll be down to like 50 psi in the morning, and the airbags, as you can see, will be out of air. So after it sits, well, it takes a good 12, 13 hours to do that. But if you let it sit, he said he let it sit for an hour and it only lost 2 psi. He couldn't hear it. He sprayed known problem areas with soapy water, couldn't find it. So sometimes those things are tough to find. We'll just have to let it go. It's definitely not a DOT violation. It is, you can't even find it with water, let alone, it has to be an audible air leak to be a DOT violation. And then I had a transmission leak on top of the tranny, and I'll show you that if I can get in there. The plate that the shifter sits on was leaking, so did an excellent job, man. They took that all out. They had to take the floor out, where the shifter is, get down in there, steam clean it all off, and replace that gasket and put it all back together. And check the vent to make sure it wasn't plugged. But it looks like the vent needs replaced too, because it's seeping a little bit. I'll show you this vent. I sent him some text last night saying, well, there's a little oil around this. What do you think? And he goes, yeah, those vents crack. So he's got another one on its way. And other than that, that was it. He greased the truck, gave it a once over. Said my spring pin bushings in the back are starting to show a little wear, probably good for another year. And I got a wheel seal that's just a little bit damp, so he said it'd probably be good for a long time, but we will be back to do this vent. I said, well, when we come in, we'll do that wheel seal too. So let me flip this around and see what I can and can't get on camera. And then we'll talk about how to find a good mechanic, right? We'll eventually get to what this video is for. See you in a minute. All right, I think you can see back in there. See, they steam cleaned that all off. And actually that plate with the shifter, you can't tell right now because I just hosed the truck off, but in between that plate and the orangish color transmission is a new gasket. It was white, but now it's kind of wet because I've been hosing the truck off. Because on the way home, I hit every mosquito in southeast Missouri. So the truck was already clean, but I had to re-clean it. So that little thing that's sticking up kind of looks like it's not screwed in all the way. That's the transmission vent. He says they don't screw in all the way. I know it's hard to see because everything's wet. You can see a little bit of moisture. I guess it cracks up above those threads and will seep out. So we're going to replace that. Let me zoom back out and get my flashlight out of here. So we got that done. Couldn't find the air leak. But we'll deal with it, and we're going to roll out tomorrow. So that sensor is right up there. There's an exhaust pressure sensor and an exhaust back pressure sensor. Says usually that one will throw a code, but this one will not. So that's supposed to be the culprit. We'll find out, right? It's always something. You need a good mechanic. I do a lot of this myself, but man, if I can't make enough money to pay them to do it, so I don't have to work every weekend, and I'm going to get out of trucking altogether. There ain't much money in it anyways, you know, I tell you guys that all the time. But it comes down to I can't make a living without spending every weekend in this shop fixing it. It's time to go do something else. All right, let me flip this around and we'll talk about mechanics. All right, I need one of those selfie stick things. So the way to do all that was like $550. That's fine. I don't want to crawl up under there and rip the whole floor out of the truck. Those guys are better than I am. So there's your update. So as far as finding a good mechanic, I don't have any real good advice for that. All I could say is if you have some mechanical understanding, you're gonna know if you're being ripped off. So it's kind of a trial and error. You just have to try some and see if they work for you. Now, other than that, I will tell you that contrary to popular belief, the best mechanics are not at the dealerships. There are some good mechanics at dealerships, and a lot of the best mechanics do come from dealerships. But what happens with a guy that's exceptional in his trade? He keeps climbing that ladder, just like a truck driver. The best truck drivers will not 90% of the time, maybe, well, I don't know, 95. I don't know what the percentage you put on that. But usually the top 1% of drivers are going to own their own ride or own a few trucks. They're not going to be satisfied working for somebody, okay? Especially if they have any drive. So they're going to go into being an owner operator. Same thing with mechanics. They're going to work wherever, and then they're going to realize, hey man, I already got 50 grand in tools. If I get another 50, I'd be enough to open a shop. You know, you're going to keep adding to that, of course, as you grow. But they'll figure out, you know, hey man, I'm making 25 bucks an hour. I could charge 100, 125 bucks an hour, rent a building, and hey, you just start putting the numbers together and you realize, why am I working for somebody else? Being told what to do all the time, dictated to all the time, when I can take time off, when I can't. And they're not going to be willing to give up, you know, if it costs you 50% overhead, they'd still be making 50 bucks an hour, which is double what they're giving them at the dealership. So they're going to go out on their own. So the best mechanics I found own their own shop. So I guess I could give you a few names, but it's subjective. One, and I've never been there, but I've heard enough good things, would be Haggai Diesel down there in Georgia. They seem to be really good. Ryan, who I bought this truck from, and I still have him do work if I'm in that area, although my new mechanic's right there with him, maybe even above him a little bit on some things. And he's 15 miles down the road, so it's hard for me now to want to make a trip all the way to Ohio and sit either in a hotel or whatever for Ryan to do what he needs to do when I can just sit at home, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So if I got to be down a couple of days, I'd rather do it at home than in a hotel in Canton, Ohio. But if you live in that area or you just need a good mechanic, hit him up, man. He'll take care of you. Good dude and very knowledgeable. And then if you're in Missouri, Ryan's Diesel in Dexter, Missouri. That's the Ryan I got down here. You could Google all these names and find them easy enough. So, yeah, just looking at the quality of work they do. I mean, look at this. They could have just wiped it off and been done, but I mean, they actually get in there with a steam cleaner, and I mean, these guys are just top notch, man. Everything they do, they put 100% in, and I like that. That's rare to find these days. So, yeah, you're just going to have to gauge it on your own experience, but most good mechanics are not going to be at dealerships. They're not going to be truck stop mechanics. You're going to want to find mechanics, you know, Jim's Diesel, and he's got 3 or 4 of his guys working for him that used to work with him at the dealership or wherever or whatever. Those are going to be the small business owners, man. They're going to put one, you know, like Ryan up here, he's 100 bucks an hour, 110 bucks an hour. Dealership's 200, which is funny. You get a better service from this guy. They're going to generally be cheaper, and they're going to care more about what they do because their reputation is everything. A Freightliner dealership, they don't care about their reputation. They're all just employees there, so none of them have any real skin in the game. All right, y'all, hope this helps. Hope that answers the question, and I guess another video coming. Waiting for you. Hey, if you commented answer, would you wanted a load board video, but I don't know if you want CRST load board, or did you want me to pull up the truckstop.com or DAT board, or do a spot market board, or what would you like? All right, we'll see you. Bye. God bless you.